This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. We're here in Sheffield and I'm joined by Dave Coldwell. Dave, firstly, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. It makes a nice change to be stood next to somebody that's not towering over me. Sonny Edwards over to my left.
You are on your tiptoes, mind, Dave.
No, that's so I can tower over him.
Dave, obviously, as we mentioned here in Sheffield, Hopey Price, your charge, returns to the ring. Talk about this camp, Dave. A simple question: how's Hopey looked? I imagine it's been maybe a little bit of frustration that he hasn't got out a little bit quicker.
Yeah, so he was supposed to have boxed in Leeds on the last Josh Warrington, and he had a bad back injury, to be fair, so we had to pull out of that. He's been ready to fight since the last couple of months, but it was a bad injury, and it took a couple of months to heal up and rehab and do everything right, not rush. So date-wise, it's worked out about right. It's just frustrating for him, being a young fighter, wanting to get the momentum and having things go off outside of his control that have sold things. But want to just get back out there. We've got a good opponent, 18-3, not a put-in. It's a good step up for him. Hopefully we show a little bit of progression. Obviously, when you're in the gym all the time working to improve, you have bigger measures of improvement. With the stumbling block that we've had, I'm happy to see a little bit of progression on him, and then we move forward and get active again.
For you guys and as a team on Saturday, then, Dave, is the main thing just kind of not just getting the win, but seeing how his injuries healed up so that you can look to be a bit more aggressive later this year, shall we say?
Yeah, when you the back's a funny thing. When you have a back injury, it makes you feel vulnerable almost, and it takes away that air of invincibility. And for a young fighter, that's you treading water a little bit until you're back sparring fully. Then you realise everything's all right. But then on fight night, you just want that fight out of the way, and then you move on. And that's kind of how I look at things, and with this especially. But yeah, he's looking very, very good. People have seen a little glimpse of him there. He's very, very sharp, very, very fast. He's got a great mentality, a great attitude. I love working with him.
Dave, just get a word on the gym before I touch on a couple of fights on this card. Lerrone Richards and Gill both here today. Give me an update, Dave.
Jordan's hand's healed now. He's back sparring with two hands. Not full throttle, but he's been back sparring a couple of weeks now with it and not getting any reaction. Just for those that didn't know, he had a hand operation. So we're looking at end of September, early October for him. The October date, I think, to be fair, will be a better date for us. So yeah, and that could be a big one, hopefully. So be excited to get him back out. Watching him in training now and everything, he's back to his best. Before the preparation for that last fight was the worst one we've had because he had a bad knee injury going into there. So he didn't have any stability with his legs, didn't have the movement, didn't have the stability in him. But he didn't have any titles, any bargaining chips to be able to pull out and not be at the back of the queue again. So we went through with a fight, gets a win. Now he's got the European title. It was like perfect time to get his hand operated on that he's been putting off for 2 years, and so we can move on fit and healthy, and that's where he's at now. So I'm looking forward to Jordan being back. I've got Stephen Cairns boxing April 27th up in Scotland, so looking forward to that as well.
Mr. Lerrone Richards.
All you lot asking me about Lerrone, all you're doing is getting me into shit, because it's the most frustrating thing that I've ever had to deal with as a coach. I'm watching this kid in my gym, training, learning, developing, becoming a better fighter, day in, day out. He boxed December 18th. He had 2 weeks off. 2 weeks off because we're going to get ready for a big 2022. Well, now, August 4th, we're still waiting for a big 2022. And it's not through no fault of his own. He's not been out getting pissed. He's not been out getting fat and eating pizzas. He's been in my gym training all the time. He's not from up here. He lives in London. His family's in London. He's got a kid in Belfast. He could be in other places. But he's training in my gym, waiting on a date. We're still waiting on a date. So don't ask me about Lerrone Richards.
I know you're saying don't ask you, Dave, but when you look at that world scene, what do you actually think is most likely? Do you think he might just end up having to have a tick over in the meantime? Or?
Have a tick over. We've been asking for a tick over. If we can't have a big fight, we'll have a tick over in the fucking gym, waiting, training. So we'll have a tick over. He's got an IBO title. Don't mean shit. But there's people out there that'll fight for an IBO title. Don't care who it is. Have a little defence for an IBO title. Shit, we'll fight for a 10-rounder. Just fight. Just get a fight. But still waiting.
Just picking that back up there here with Dave Coldwell. It's just a slight issue with my camera. It's a new camera, Dave, so I'm still learning myself. We'll go back to the Dalton Smith question. Obviously, him here facing Samo Mason. There's a lot of excitement around Dalton whenever he enters the ring. But for you yourself, when you watch him, what in particular impresses you the most, and what are you expecting to see in this fight on Saturday night?
His punch picking. He's an intelligent fighter. You can see he had a good amateur career. You can see he's got a good coach in, obviously, his dad, and what they work on in the gym. There's a lot of thinking that goes off in there. He doesn't rush his work too much. His progression as a pro has been fantastic. He's got good balance. I rate him. I think he's a good fighter, and he's got decent power as well.
Everybody looking towards the future when it comes to Dalton, provided he's successful on Saturday night. Where does his career go? Would you like to see him stick around the British route, or do you think he could be moved quicker?
I think he's still young. Get a British title. It's only my opinion. Get the British title and stay around that sort of level. There's some good fights in that mix, and then progress. You know.
David, get your thoughts on a few things away from this card, because I know everybody's left now. My little issue there means we've got to hurry it on a bit. But just looking at certain fights which could be on the horizon, Benn and Eubank Jr is one which has been spoken about recently at a catch weight. What's your thoughts, though? If that one was to be rubber stamped and signed off, what's your take on it?
Wow, that's a mad fight. It's a crazy fight, but it's a fight that it's exciting. It's exciting. No matter whether you think it should happen or not, you're going to watch it, because it's one of those where you go, eh? But it can't fail to be an explosive fight. That it's going to be brilliant, and there's so many things to look at. And you think, well, Benn can really punch, but Eubank can really take a shot. Connor's only little. He's only small. Eubank's massive, but coming down in a way, is it going to take away strength? If it doesn't take away strength, can Benn cope with that strength? I don't know. It's so, does Eubank box in the Roy Jones hybrid sort of style, or does he revert back to his toughness, aggression, and volume? Which way does it work? If Eubank boxes, I think it gives Conor more of a chance of winning the fight. I don't know. It's an exciting fight. It's a good fight.
I've seen some people say that they're not quite keen on seeing the fight because they'd rather see both fighters stay in their lane in their own divisions. But from your perspective, are you more open to it? Are you more receptive to it? Or would you rather see them carrying on in their divisions?
I get that. When it was first talked, I was like, why? But you look at the division that Conor's in, and you think, all right, they're there. And if they can't get any fights in that are meaningful, just a level below, this is a big fight for DAZN. It's a big fight to draw, to drive subscriptions and things like that. It's a big fight financially for the fighters. Conor Benn, I mean, I'm not. Obviously, he's getting paid really well now, but a fight against Eubank versus Benn versus Eubank is huge numbers-wise. So therefore, fighters are going to get paid unbelievable. So as a fight, you're going to think, well, listen, this is literally securing my future now, and then I can go back, win or lose. I go back chasing my path towards a world title. Eubank is a little bit more different, because if Eubank gets beat by Conor Benn, a guy coming up a couple of divisions, what does that do for his work? So I'm a little bit surprised that Eubank took the fight. I understood Conor Benn chasing it, but I never thought that Eubank could go for it, because I thought, you're looking at world title fights. You're not young anymore, like young. What is it, 30? Yeah, 31, 32. So it's kind of like this is where you want to be staking that claim, getting into world level opponents and meaningful fights in your division. But if they're not there on the horizon, there you go. I understand why it's happening.
Away from that one, somebody you know well, Mr. Chisora, obviously come through the Purewal fight with a win. There's been some reports recently that he might be in line for a trilogy bout with Tyson Fury. Now, I don't know whether you've seen him or not, Dave, but what's your thoughts on potentially seeing Derek face Tyson for a third time?
As somebody that's worked with Derek and knows Derek personally, I hope if that's the case, it's the first I've heard of it, but if that's the case, fair play, because it'll make him a lot of money. He gets to fight for a world heavyweight title. Good luck to him, great. I'm really happy for him.
We know in the past you said you wouldn't want to see him step in with Deontay Wilder. Would you rather see him face Tyson instead of Deontay?
Yeah, why not?
What would that be, Dave?
Because he gets to fight for that world heavyweight title. Why is Derek still fighting? He's fighting for some sort of reason. Because he loves fighting and he probably wants to fight for a world title. And he gets to fight for that world title. And so it ticks all boxes for him. Listen, everyone, he knows, and I've said it enough times, that I would have liked him to have retired. He's not. So don't expect me to be like jumping up and down with joy where every fight gets made. But take myself out of the equation. I've got nothing to do with him anymore. Which fights would I rather? If it's a Wilder fight for me, that's far more dangerous than going in with Fury. Who, not because Fury's not dangerous, but he's been in with him twice before. They're old pals, and it's kind of like Tyson's put his hand out and say, "Here you go, son. Here's a shot at the champ." Doing it in a nice way. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of respect and a bit of friendship between them two, and it's kind of like, well, if that's the way it's going to be, then he gets a crack at a world title. So fair play.
Dave, we're only 2 weeks out now from a rematch out in Saudi Arabia as well between Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk. Just from a trainer's perspective, what's your thoughts on him bringing Robert Garcia into the camp and still working obviously with Angel Fernandez as well, the dynamic there?
You have to be in that camp, don't you, to see how it works. It's very hard to say, but if they've gelled and if they're all on the same page, then Robert Garcia is extremely experienced at top level, so he's only going to add good things to AJ. Is that the right fit for AJ himself? I don't know. We won't know until we get onto fight night, because you've seen before where like Freddie Roach or whatever has worked with some top level and it's just not worked. So fighters have got to gel with the coaches. It doesn't necessarily mean that the best coach in the world will fit with any fighter. It has to gel, and you don't really know that because you're sat on the outside, not seeing what's happening in the gym. You don't know what the end product's going to be yet. So that's part of the dynamic.
Right, Dave, I know you've got to shoot off now because everybody's left and you need to go get something to eat. But I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sticking around through my difficulties here. Thank you for speaking to me in ID Boxing.
Cheers, thanks, mate. Nice one.